All right, everybody, welcome to the third weekly sync of TCL 63. I know you had a fun week with these issues. So some interesting code being written. So some challenges being faced. So I'll hand it over to Chase, who will run us through with this week's demos.
Yeah. Let's see. Is there anyone that would like to start demos?
We can start since we were issue number 3.
Awesome.
I'm gonna share my screen. I mean, just a minute. Okay. So we were taking care of issue number 3, which was basically just to generate a unique token, save to the local storage, and then of course show the user the list view. And we ended up just thinking that we should just go ahead and do extra stuff that was out of scope, but we fixed the issue. And this is how it looks from the production side, which I'm gonna refresh the page. And it's basically we just click on create new list, and we follow to the list page. And here we added a new thing, which was to show the token, because we noticed you didn't have that, and maybe the person would not have access to the token and not know how to access the list. So we decided to add this, and that's basically it. The code side of the things, Adlan is going to explain, which is on this right side here.
Yes, thank you. So on the app.js, you see we actually deleted the test token, which was my test list on the top. So now that this is null, we are passing this function with the set list token. We are passing this as a prop to the home.js. So now in the home.js, according to the wireframe, we can have that button that says create new list, which generates a new token. So if we go to the home.js now, we can see that we are receiving that function, that set list token, and we are also importing this generate token from the package made by the Collab lab. So this function from that package generates a new token. So as you see, we have this button component, which is a custom component that can accept labels, type. It has different properties. We didn't add any styling to this button component, but I'm sure as we develop the app, we can add more styling to it. So we can use this button just app-wide. But for now, we are only passing the button label, which is create new list. And then we have like we have an event listener, the on-click on this button, and when the user clicks it, it triggers the generate token function, and then we pass that token to the set list token function, which actually saves it in the local storage. And then just a minor addition to the list item is that when the route takes us to the list.jsx, we show the user what the token is, because they can use that token for future reference to join their existing list. And then we thought maybe prompt the user that, hey, the list is currently empty. So later on, you can also use the add item to add items to this list. So this is as far as the code goes. Rachel,
this is
yeah, if you think I missed anything, please.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Aslan had this amazing idea of creating the reusable component for the button, which I really loved, and we tried to implement, and we finally got it. So we're very happy about that side, because then we can reuse all over the place if necessary, and add styles, of course, later on. But that's pretty much it.
Thanks. One thing though, I totally forgot that, like, on a custom component, I was putting the on-click on the custom component and it was not working. Then the inside, Rachel actually caught this, that if you pass a function to the custom component like an onClick, we have to like pass it as a prop to the custom component. So that's why we have the onClick here, so that we can assign an event listener to a custom component. That was something I learned through this.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, everyone. Do you have any questions?
I have a question. What was it like using the external library, the shopping list utils? Have you guys had to do that before? Was it pretty straightforward to implement, or were there any challenges?
That one specifically, not to generate token, was not very difficult to use because I think you guys had a pretty good documentation. And it was basically already on the issue here. If we go there, it was like already basically telling us what to do. So it was pretty straightforward. We did have problems trying to implement actually like sending to the Firebase, which hopefully later on we're going to be able to go back to it and kind of actually use the Firebase and not just the local storage. But overall, yeah, that was it.
Nice. If any of you haven't had a chance yet to take a look at the code that's being used in the shopping list utils, I would encourage you to just see like what's happening, what you're doing, because I think you all probably would be able to follow along the code. So yeah, very nice job and great demo.
Good. Thank you. I'm gonna stop the sharing. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. That was great. Would the other team like to present?
Okay, I'll get started. So I'll keep my my video off just to make sure that the quality of the audio is up to par. Shengguan and I we had to work on issue number 4. The overall scope was to update the add item page with a form that allows users to add an item name, choose a buying frequency, and then by clicking a button, add the item to their list. So for that purpose, we created a form. So we created a form with an input field of type text. That field receives the name of the item that the user types. We make sure that we added a semantic label. That means that if the user clicks on the label, the focus is brought immediately to the input field. The change in value is handled by the handle change function that updates the item name property in the form data state. So Shengguan will share this later. We created a form data state that's an object with 2 properties, item name and days until next purchase, which reflects the buying frequency. We wanted to make sure that we follow a 2-way binding process. So we have like a control component. So the state receives information from the input, but at the same time, the input value is being updated by the state. Okay, next we have a field set with 3 radio buttons. Again, we used semantic labels for each button. We added, that was a nice suggestion from Raquel. We added the required attribute. It does not make a difference in this case for the purpose of making sure that the user doesn't forget to submit, because we already have a default value. So there's never going to be an error in this case because the user forgets to select one of the radio buttons, but it does make a difference in terms of accessibility, because a screen reader user will hear that this is a required field. Again, we follow a 2-way binding process and make sure we have a control component. So the handle change, the same function we are using for the input field, is the one that also handles the selection of one of the 3 radio buttons, updates the state, the days until next purchase property of the form data state, and then it sends that information back and informs the value of the checked attribute for each radio button. Okay, so there's 3 radio buttons, and we have the submit button, which it's a form with the submit button. So I think we already showed that at the top of the form, the function that handles the submit button. And Shengun is going to share that function a bit later. And last but not least, we have a submission message that gets triggered when the item is being added to the list, when the input field is empty or it has spaces in it, and then also where there is an error. For example, like we saw it today because we lost that prop that was not being sent over from the app, and this is when it doesn't communicate with the database, so we get a fail to add item to a database message. And we also make sure that there's also an audio version of the message. That's why we added an ARIA Live attribute to the submission message. And that's it. I'll pass the baton to Shengguan, who's going to talk about the functions that trigger this form.
Yep. So in terms of the handle change function, we first destruct the event target. That way we don't have to rewrite it 3 times. And then here we added the extra check for the type radio because we set the initial value as 7, 14, and 30. And we want to parse it into int so that it can easily calculate how many days until the next purchase for later use. And then for the form submission, we created a handle submit function, and it is an async function. And we first said prevent default because we don't want the page to reload every time the user changes something. And we also here checked if the user added like a white space or just didn't fill out. So that's why we use the trim function here. And then we changed the submission message here. So that's why you will see the display here. And then later down, we added a try catch clause. So if the submission is successful, you will see the item was added to the Firebase. And then in the Firebase, we actually changed the function console log to add doc. So it can add the item successfully to this list. And then coming back, it takes the props list token from app.js. So that's the only thing that we change in this app.js file. And then if there's an error, it will also change the submissions. So here we can quickly try, let's say, if we add a pizza and then we check that and then we add item, and then you will see the message says pizza was successfully added to the database. Yep, that's it. Any questions?
I have a question about the some of the accessibility that you all wrote into this code. Like, how did you all know to use the ARIA polite thing? Were you testing on a screen reader at all, or is that just something you knew to do?
Marina is a pro on this.
Yeah, we were testing. I mean, I've used it before. Yeah, so we kept testing, and it just happened that I work on a PC, Shengguan works on a Mac, so we tested both, and certain things weren't working. Like we kept like using the keyboard, and it was skipping like the first radio button, and we couldn't figure out, and and then I realized that if we put a break, if you notice, there's a break between the label and the first line in the input. And for some reason that does the trick, and I can't figure out why. Sometimes, yeah. So yeah, well, we are still going to explore this. I might just maybe put out a question in the learning channel, because I'm sure we have accessibility knowledgeable people around that could help us. And other things that, for example, we missed we didn't miss because we added, Shangon knew about this. We added the required attribute to the input field. But then the browser itself adds a warning if the input field is empty. And so we wouldn't need the ARIA Live. But this is where, I think accessibility is both a science and an art. And this is, I think in terms of science, you can look up, the requirements, but the art part is where, like when you have two options, which one is better? And eventually we made the decision to keep the ARIA live because it will deal with all three messages. And from a styling point of view, the warning about the input field being empty, it's kind of like tucked there next to the input field versus having a message at the bottom of the form. Again, I'm not sure which one is better, but don't get me started on accessibility because I'll talk till tomorrow morning. So.
That's amazing. Really well thought through. I like that you all were testing it. The comment is also helpful so that people know that like why it's there. So yeah, really nice job, you guys.
Thank you.
Nice. That was super impressive. I don't think I've seen any teams like so focused on accessibility like so early on in the project, but it's nice to see, and happy to say that I actually learned about ARIA Live Polite reading through this code this week. All right, so next up, what we'll be doing is our first retrospective. So I'll send a link in chat. Could you all just open it, make sure everybody's able to see it and be able to add items to it? All right, all good? Yeah. All right, so what we'll be doing is we'll spend about, let's say 7 minutes, maybe 10 at most, just going through each one of these columns. So it's pretty straightforward. What we'll do is first of all, write your appreciations, for the last 2 weeks. What went well, what could be improved. So, what wasn't so great, and we learned from them, and what actions we plan to take, based on everything for the last 2 weeks. Yeah, what I would propose, I could write the first one. And what I would suggest is just leave your initials at the end of it, so that we'll know who wrote what. All right, pencils up, and you all can start writing. Yeah, 7 minutes on the clock. I wish we had some Jeopardy music to play while this was going on.
I actually have a question about this, what could be improved. So, for example, for me, I need to put in there is exactly what Devin put in there. But the solution would be, for me at the very least, is I will look ahead at the next two issues to make sure I'm not going out of scope. But would that be the action items or would that be what could be improved? Or both?
I think
Okay.
there's, yeah, I think there's a little bit, whichever you feel is more appropriate. I think usually the action items come directly from what could be improved. So wherever you want to put it, I think is okay. And we'll probably discuss as a team. Usually on my teams, sometimes as we're talking about things, we think of action items to put in the action item column. So yeah, whichever makes more sense to you, I think is okay. Would you agree, Devin?
Yeah, I would say one is probably identifying the issues, and then second one is what you're going to do about them. All right, so I'll just take one more minute before we start reading. I won't say pencils down, because if you think of something while while reading them out, you can just type it in quickly. All right, let's get going. So we'll just start reading them out as we go along. So I can call you if you need me to. But I will start. So I really appreciated the level of communication among the Collabis for the last 2 weeks. It was really nice to see how you all, communicated your ideas back and forth, and how it led you all to the solutions that you all eventually implemented. Yeah. Shangwan, is that you next? Yeah. Oh yeah, you get to read them.
Okay. I really appreciate the speedy reply from both peers and mentors.
Karina?
Oh, it's me, I think.
Oh, sorry, Caitlin.
They're good. We got 2 C's. 3, Chase was also a C. So I just said I really appreciate the great attitude all the collabs have. I already said this to Devin and Chase like right after our first meeting, but you all have such a great attitude. You are really eager to learn and really like happy to help each other. And I can see that you're all benefiting from each other's knowledge. So it's really great to see.
Nice work, team. Aslan.
I think that's me, yes. I appreciate having this window through which I can see the thought process behind everyone's way of approaching code and solving problems in their own creative way. It teaches me to understand the other person better and become a better collaborator.
Nice. Karina.
Yeah, I really appreciate how supportive and helpful everyone has been.
All right. Raquel.
I really appreciate how we shared our love for the things we liked about each other's work.
So many C's. Chase.
Yeah, it's my first one. I really appreciate how passionate the team is about development and how eager everyone is to face new challenges each week.
Agreed. 100%. Caitlin.
This one's me. Yeah. Just appreciation to Devin and Chase for being great mentors and making it a really pleasant experience from the mentor side as well. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, this next one was actually me. I really appreciate my fellow mentors, especially when you pick up on the stuff that I miss. So thank you very much. Chase.
As last two. I really appreciate how well everyone works together on the team and how well y'all communicate with each other. And then I really appreciate the mentor team for teaching me about TCL.
We learn a lot every day. All right, on to what went well. I thought your peer PR reviews were great, especially when you all reviewed each other's PRs. And I felt like there was a lot of great input from everyone and learning as a result. Yeah, Caitlin?
Yeah, +1 to what Devin just said. You're not just like rubber stamping it, but actually being thoughtful. And then my comment was about the demos. They're really easy to follow. It's clear that you've put some thought into how to present, challenges you faced, what you've learned, and just making it easy for everyone to understand your process. And that's a really, really good skill to have.
Agreed. Shangwan?
And I said pair programming session was really helpful and efficient, and I also learned a lot from both of my partners.
Nice. Corina?
Yeah, I think our team has done a great job completing all the issues we were assigned.
I agree. Aslan?
Yes, getting to the finish line while facing all the challenges and of course learning.
Was that related to this weekend?
Both, no, in general, like just accomplishing, yes, especially this weekend for sure, with all the Git conflicts.
All right, Caitlin.
That is related to mine. I just said congrats on surviving your first merge conflict. Those are, I know, really scary, especially when you haven't dealt with any or very many. But you survived. So now the next one will be a little less scary, hopefully.
Yeah, next one was me. And I know it's very early, but I do feel like your presentation skills have improved from first to second demos, so good job and keep it going. Raquel?
Oh, sorry. I've enjoyed the pair programming so far and learning things together and seeing the different ways to problem solve. It's amazing.
And Chase?
Yeah, I think it went really well that everyone was able to create some really great features with a new teammate each week. I feel like, especially the first time, working with someone new, it just kind of can present challenges sometimes. But yeah, it's been great to see.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so what could be improved? And I would say don't think of this as something negative, but maybe more like, lessons that we could extract from the issues that came up as a result. So I would say, first of all, we could be a bit more mindful of the scope of the issues that we're working on. And I know it's very easy to get carried away because we want to do stuff, but just be mindful of it. And maybe especially in the context of, if you had 2 people working on the same or similar issues, you would have definitely guaranteed merge conflicts at that point. So just be careful. Karina?
Yeah, I would like to be more relaxed at the possibility of making a mistake. And I want to, I want to extend to myself the same courtesy I extend to others, because I was cheering. I know Raquel apologized. I was cheering that a thing happened, because it forced me to go back and look through every commit, and just I don't know, like, I'm sure they probably felt bad. I don't know, just because I'm saying this because I saw the word apologize from Raquel, and still I hope I didn't make them feel bad. But I know that I would have done the same thing. I would have felt bad. But I think it's just part of the process, especially that it didn't cause a major issue. It just it had us think about certain things. It's not that we had to spend a week fixing something or so. Yeah, but I know I am stressed about that. Just being kind of like being put on the spot, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, Karina, relax. I'd say embrace it. First off, you're doing a fantastic job. But when these things go wrong, just think of it as you have more data, which would to work with. Shangwan?
Is that write better PR as the issue gets more complex? I really like the other team this week. They wrote very detailed PR. I saw it, and compared to ours, I think I could possibly do better next time.
I actually think both PRs were very well written, but yeah. Raquel?
I want definitely kind of review the upcoming issues, so we avoided just working on things out of scope, just to make sure we're not just overworking ourselves. And that's pretty much it.
Aslan. Corinne, I might disagree with you, but go.
Definitely preventing any more Git conflicts. I'm sure they will come up, but trying as best with a pull before I commit anything, at least.
Yeah, that's okay. I think Corinne actually wants to get conflict, so we'll see.
Yes.
All right, and now and the action items as a result. Karina.
Yeah, give them to me. If there is any Git conflict.
Yeah, so your last action item is just Karina's.
Oh, I forgot I put that one. So try positive affirmation. Mistakes make me learn and grow. I mean, that's what I used to use with my students. The best, we would like celebrate the best mistake of the day. And if they wouldn't make a mistake, I'd make sure that I would trip them next day, so force them to make a mistake so we can talk about it. So I think it's easier said than done. Again, I have to learn my own lesson that I'm teaching.
I love it. Embrace it. All right. Nice job with this retro, everyone. All right. So I'll hand you all over to Caitlin, who will talk about this week's issues.
Yep. That was a great retro, everyone. It solidified that you all want to learn and help each other. So that is awesome. Okay, so here is, let's see. So this week, we're going to have, our pairs are going to be Raquel and Karina and Shangwan and Aslan. And we're just going to take a look at our issues that are coming up. So the first one, number 5, is as a user, I want to join an existing shopping list so I can share a shopping list with another person. So, that's why we have that code that we've been working on in the past. We want to be able to share it now with others. And we'll take a look at that in detail, but just to also give you a heads up, the next one is going to be, as a user, I want to filter my shopping list to make it easier to locate an item in the list. So these ones are pretty different from each other. Number 5, we can take a look at this summary. So first the summary is that we want to allow users to join existing shopping lists so they can manage them with friends or family. This would take the following steps. So for the user, what they're going to do is they're going to enter the token into a form, and then that token is going to be saved to their local storage in their browser. And then finally, the user is taken to the list view and shown the existing list. So that's kind of what our goal is for this user experience. Our acceptance criteria, and there's 2 scenarios. One is if a user doesn't already have a token, and the other one is if they do already have a token. So if they don't have a token, it should show them a form where they can enter their token to join an existing list of someone who shared their token with them. And then So the form, and there's also a button to create a new list. So they have a choice to either join an existing list or create a new list. If they are using the form, the input that accepts the token has a semantic label element associated with it. I think that's a typo. So you guys are already on top of accessibility, so that should be no problem. Then they're going to submit the form. Either they have the option to do it with mouse or enter key. Again, that's an accessibility consideration. And then if the list exists to match their token, then their token is saved to local storage and they're redirected to the list view as kind of described up in the summary. If it does not exist, then they see an error message that explains the problem. And then finally, if they do already have a token, they're going to be redirected to the list view. So they don't have to worry about everything here. If the token already exists in their local storage, so you're going to have to check and see if they have a token or not. And then there's a couple notes here. Definitely encourage on the topic of scope creep, making sure you read through these notes because sometimes that can help address like, don't do this thing that's going to be addressed in a future issue. So I'm not going to make you listen to me read through all of them, but just some notes that address some common questions and problems that we've seen with this issue. And then issue 6 is going to be, oh, well, actually, are there any questions about this issue before I move on to the next one?
I do have a question about the last criteria.
This one?
Yeah, isn't that already in place? Or if it's not, what? Because we have the button now to create a token, and then once we do that, it immediately prompts us to redirects us to the list view.
Yes, that's a good question. Is it, if you are revisiting the page, is it also going to redirect you to the list view? I can't remember if that already exists yet.
It does, because if there is, if I already click create a token once, that's already going straight to local storage.
Right. Yep. So I think this is really just to help differentiate, just to make sure that you're not undoing that work when you're creating this functionality. So as our app is right now, we can already check this off, but it's just something to double check that you haven't kind of broken this functionality in adding this functionality in.
Okay, sounds good.
But yeah, that behavior you're describing is exactly what this is asking us to do. Good question. Any other questions? Okay, if you have any, feel free to let us know. But let's take a look at number 6, and then we'll go ahead and assign them out. So number 6 is that we want to be able to filter our shopping lists. So it says that allowing users to search through their list will help them cut down on clutter and focus on items they're looking for. So our acceptance criteria here, we have a form added to the top of the list view above the shopping list. And this form includes the following elements: a text field with a semantic label, which narrows down the list as the user types. And then when there's text in the field, some kind of button, for example, an X, to clear the field. When the field is cleared, the list resets to its unfiltered state. So basically, if you have, like milk, eggs, bread on your list, and you start typing MI, it should, the list should simplify just down to milk. That's the only thing that matches that list. And you can also clear it by hitting the X or whatever button it is. And we have a couple of additional notes here, but does anyone have any questions about this issue?
I do. So is it just expected that you type and then the filtered list populates, or is pressing enter?
I think that
expected to do anything about it.
Yeah, I don't think it's specified in our acceptance criteria. So that can be a decision that you and your partner make about whether you want it to kind of update as you're typing, or if you want the user to hit enter or filter in order to filter the list. I think that is not dictated. So that can be kind of a discussion your team has about what are the trade-offs of doing one approach over the other.
And is this something that will be improved further? I'm just looking at the summary. It says allowing users to search through their list will help them cut down on clutter and focus on items they are looking for. So is the ultimate purpose to be able to click on an item from the filter list and maybe find out more information about that item?
That's not
Eventually-
going to be in the
Not
scope.
for, I understand, not for this scope,
Yeah.
but
I don't think that's going to be in the scope of this project necessarily, but that could certainly be like, you know, if you all decide you want to build off of this project further, like that could be a cool thing to like click on the item and have additional information show. We are going to add additional context to the list over time, but like specifically being able to click on an item and get more information isn't going to be in any of the issues that we're going to tackle. But it's a good idea. Like it could be something if you all want to further enhance this project once, you know, our 8 weeks are over. That could be a good idea.
okay,
So
so just
to
right
answer
now,
your question,
just filter. Okay.
yeah, exactly. Just so that like if you have 30 items on your list and you're like, oh, did I already add eggs to my list? You can just search it and so that you don't have to add eggs twice to your list or something like that. So yeah, pretty. It's going to be a little bit of work to implement, but the summary is pretty simple. You just want to be able to filter down your list and see what items match your search term. Any other questions? Okay, well, let's remind ourselves. So we've got Raquel and Karina and Shangwan and Aslan. Does anyone have a preference? Would anyone like to have issue 5 or issue 6?
I volunteer for issue 5.
Issue
Oh, I
5?
was going to say 6.
Karina.
You guys, you want to like rock, paper, scissors? Anyone feel like really wanna take one or the other?
It's fine. I mean, I just because I need to have a similar project that I was thinking about it, and I would love not to learn about it from the other team.
Gotcha.
Because but that's totally fine if Raquel prefers number 5.
Okay. Well, Shangwan already said that she wants to have more contextual PRs, so I'm sure she will do what she can to help give context. So we're going to have Karina and Raquel on issue number 5, and then we'll have issue 6 will be in this one. Fantastic. Oh, did it not save either of those? Sometimes the GitHub UI is a little finicky. There we go. Okay. I can stop sharing my screen then.
All right, great. So you're all having a very interesting conversation in one of the threads before this meeting started. Was there anything that you all wanted to discuss, you know, about merge conflicts and, you know, how to prevent them? Any of those questions that you all would like to talk about?
I think would be just like the solution I talked about, if would potentially cause another issue, or if that would be helpful in case, like you mentioned, if we were working on the same file somehow, even if it's to change just one line of it, and kind of just do the kit pool to our main branch and do the working branch. I was just a little scared of doing that and kind of causing an issue that we cannot even fix. So I don't know, just have more headache.
So you're asking like what would be the best way to avoid merge conflicts if you would happen to be working on the same file? Yeah, it would depend. It would really depend on the case, I think. You know, you could do what you're saying, maybe, you know, try to bring in changes. But I mean, at that point, you probably will have to manually review, you know, do you want to accept the incoming changes and make sure it doesn't conflict with yours? But I can't think of much situations offhand where we would both be working on the same files, though. That would necessarily cause conflicts. And okay,
So
Caitlin.
personally, well, one, it doesn't mean you've done something wrong if you get a merge conflict. So don't like feel bad. Like if you're working in the same file as each other, one team's probably gonna have a merge conflict. So just you have to be the first one to merge, and then you don't have to worry about the merge conflict. So that's how you can avoid them. But if you are both working in the same file on the same lines and there is going to be a merge conflict, you can do either way, either through GitHub, you can manage the merge conflict, or what Raquel is describing of pulling the changes locally and then merging them to your branch. You're still going to have to deal with the same merge conflict, but I really like the VS Code UI for handling merge conflicts. So I like to do it that way because there's like buttons that are like, oh, accept these changes or these changes. But you can do it either way.
That might also be
then-
one. Sorry,
Sorry,
Karina.
go ahead. No, go ahead. I'll ask the question.
So what I was gonna say was that this might usually be like one benefit of creating small PRs as a result, because I've had to pull in code, and then when the conflicts span like 5 or 6 files, and so many different spots and different files, it took like so much time to resolve those things. So, and it's just because it's just like a huge PR that was being brought into mind. So one benefit of having smaller PRs would be to help reduce the effects of these very large merge conflicts. Karina?
Do you mean kind of like the documentation of the PR, or would you say the quantity of files you were working on?
It's quantity. So like there was a lot of code that was in PRs that was submitted that I had to pull into mine, and it was just a lot for me to resolve. Yeah.
So in TCL, we intentionally keep the issues tightly scoped to help avoid very large PRs with lots of changes and lots of files. But out in the wild, people do lots of things that are not that. So
Karina?
I was going to ask the question. So in this case, both teams kind of updated the app component, but different parts of it. So technically there would be like no conflict, but then the message to VS Code or GitHub has to be that you accept both changes. Is that what has to happen? Or like when you have this like merge conflict, and it says, I just play with it. I created a small project today, and then I did a PR on my end of the GitHub, just like I wanted to, and I made sure they made some changes, on the GitHub side and on my local, okay. So I got this current changes, upcoming. So there are like 3 or 4 options. And one was to accept both. And then in my case, I actually got conflict. So I had to solve manually to say, accept this one from the remote. And so was that the way to go? Like if there are changes from both ends to a component, to a file. Okay, I think
it makes sense, Karina. It's going to depend on the situation, but if you're unsure, I think what you did is probably the safest bet. Just accept both and then go through and see like if there's something that needs to be removed. Sometimes if you're both working in the same file, you can do that without getting merge conflicts, but if there's any confusion, Git is going to make you decide which one to keep, just to be safe.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely depends. So like the merge conflict we had this week, that Aslan had to resolve was basically there were, I guess in that file there were the same components, but the current changes would have to render them conditionally based on. So they were like the itineraries that weren't there before. So I guess Git couldn't decide which was the correct version of it. I think eventually the current version had to end up being the correct one, right? That's right, Aslan? Yeah. So
exactly, yes.
Yeah, so I guess it really depends on what you want to keep. I mean, you'd accept both if if they're both entirely new pieces of code that are being brought in.
Yeah, but that's how we lost the change that we made to the app component. So then Shengguan added that, made another commit to the main today.
Yeah.
So that's again, that's why I keep asking. It's just that if you accept the current change, because we had made a change to the app, that was lost.
Yeah. That may have been an oversight on my part because I think I just looked to see, okay, there was newer code. I may have missed that prop being passed in, or that was supposed to have been passed in. And I think I approved the PR, which was just, it was merged afterwards. So that one is probably on me for missing that detail.
I think one thing that could help.
Anybody's fault.
Yeah, I don't think it's anyone's fault either. I think one thing that might help if you are feeling overwhelmed by merge conflict is to have at least one person from each pair working to resolve it, so they can say, this is really, like, make sure that this gets saved in, and like you both would have context. But yeah, further reason to try and front load your week as much as possible so we have time to work through those conflicts if we need to, and it's not like a stressful thing. Yeah, but it happens.
Yeah,
It's good practice.
This was really cool. I think this was really cool. I'm sorry, Caitlin. I don't know. I was just happy because it got us to think about things like this. You know, if everything runs smoothly, then I don't think we'd be so. No, we could say that we learned so much at the end of the program. So just make sure that you throw grenades our way, you know, every week, so we just pretend you don't know about them.
I can sneak some code in if you like. Oh, this is some good discussion though. The thing about like getting Git conflicts or merge conflicts, you know, it's only the third week. All right. Any more questions, concerns, queries?
I'm going to be doing office hours this week, team, so I'll send out a form to figure out what time works best.
Good. All right. So if that's it, let's wrap it up. And I will see you all in Slack. Happy coding, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.